Let's just dive right in then.
Holy cow.
Heck yeah.
Holy cow. It's episode 34 of the Foam News Collective podcast. I'm KT. I'm here with Vile, and I'm here with Grims.
Yo.
What's up, y'all?
How's it going?
How's it going?
Doing okay.
I'm tired. I have a really crazy work week on top of producing the show, but the news does not stop just because I have like real jobs and stuff. Today is January, February, March, April, May 15th, Wednesday. And the show comes out in 2 days, but so much has gotten tossed on our plate in the last couple days.
I think I'm going to have to do a couple extra stories because it was looking very dry, and now we have a lot more.
Yeah, a lot of last second stuff. I have to go back and write a couple. I waited intentionally to record late, which is a little scary when I'm this busy.
That last script was so long.
It's so long. We were able to shorten it, but it's still really long.
It's still very long. That's a full page in Google Docs without like spaces.
Well, and the script we're talking about, of course, is the script about N-Series, which we are going to chat about a little bit closer to the end of the podcast. But before we get to that, we have to talk to our very special guest, Mr. Nathan, a storied modder and content creator, and the head of the Merge Masters project. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing pretty all right. Thanks for asking. How are you guys?
I like KT's answer. I'm doing, but honestly, it's better than not doing, so I'll take it, you know?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Pretty much. And Merge Masters, for anyone not familiar with it, is a actually no, we're gonna do this out of order, or I don't want to do it out of order. We're actually gonna talk about you a little bit first. And you and Vile, of course, participated in Merge Masters. And the two of y'all have been hanging out quite a bit online, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm on Nathan's server, and I got in later, way later than Nathan. Nathan's
right.
Been around a lot longer than me, so.
Yeah. No, I just mean, since you've been doing Merge Masters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You've gotten to chat a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, what we always like to do with a lot of the folks that come on is give us a little bit of your background. How'd you get into this, into modding, into the Nerf hobby? How'd you get started? How long have you been doing this?
Oh boy. Well, I kind of mentioned it briefly I think that was in my Why I Nerf video. That was, 7 years ago or whatever. So it's probably worth rehashing again. But I got married in 2013 and late 2013, and my wife was a very active babysitter / nanny for kind of her area at the time when she was growing up. And one of the families that she had taken care of before, she was kind of still on call for if the parents wanted to go on a long vacation and couldn't bring the kids or whatever. And so she invited me along and said, "Hey, this is a thing I do." And I said, "Okay, whatever. I don't know what to do with kids, but all right." These kids range from, one was kind of toddling around and the other one was like 13 or something. There's two other ones in the middle. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm in a strange house with a bunch of kids. I don't know what the heck's going on, whatever. And one of them showed up with a Nerf gun. And I was like, hey, I remember Nerf guns. I had Nerf guns back in the 90s. All right, things are a bit different, but okay. And so I was like, this is something we can find common ground on. And so we were playing with those, and we were there for, I think, 2 or 3 days. It was like a long weekend thing, and it went better than expected. And I was like, hey, I told my wife, I'm probably gonna have to buy some of these to have around the house because they're really cool. And so I found a $5 Maverick on Craigslist or Facebook Market, whatever it was at the time, and drove across the valley and went to kind of a rather sketchy looking part of town and gave a guy $5 and came out with a Maverick and had a good time and said, well, now I need to find another one. And so I found another, $3 to $5 Maverick somewhere, and then found out, you can get these things thrifting. Oh, people sell these things in lots. Well, that's really cool. And, you can mod these things too. There's a whole, bunch of people that do this online. Well, that's kind of cool. You can paint them black and make them look like scary guns and things. That's really neat. Huh. And kind of one thing led to another, and then you buy a few too many giant lots on Facebook Market, and now you have totes full, and you find out that you can cut things up and do a lot of other things, and it just it's that slippery slope that we're all really familiar with. And next thing you know, I'm making videos, and I'm one of those legit YouTuber, quote unquote. I'm making air quotes with my fingers that you can't see. And yeah, it's now I'm here doing this, and it's it was not where I expected to be when I started off that first little weekend with trying to survive a group of kids for a weekend.
There is certainly a pipeline there with this sort of thing, and I can definitely understand that feeling. The whole, oh, you can mod these things. Oh, you can make them look big and scary, and then, oh wait, there's other things actually cooler than making them look big and scary.
Uh-huh.
It was a different time for sure.
I laugh
Oh yeah,
because this is now the second, like another person. We're close, probably in age, I'm assuming, and our wives somehow are getting us into this hobby. What is this? What is going on here? This story has a lot of similarities between mine.
You know, I was actually just joking to someone else that I jokingly blame my wife as well, because because for me it was with my kids getting back into it. You know, Lego people talk about the dark ages, and you come out of it usually because like your own kids get into it. But she was the one that said like, yeah, you should make YouTube videos about this. Like you've learned a lot, and no one's really communicating to parents about it, and like you could really do that really well. And now here we are.
Yeah, she doesn't
But
like
yeah.
it when I put the blame on her and say, well, after she kicked me out of the house, after I outgrew the spare room and put me out into the garage, I said, this is all your fault, And she's like, no, I didn't agree to this part.
That's the jokingly part.
Mm-hmm.
But she is happy that it's made. I am a super not generally a social guy at all. Like I'm kind of cool doing my own thing. But she's like, this is cool that you're flying across the continent and playing with strangers and making friends. This is not like you. This is a good thing. And so, and I'm generally pretty reserved. And now I'm, doing the whole channel thing in front of thousands of people, and I'm operating and adminning our local Nerf group out here, and got me doing a lot of things that I had no interest in doing before.
Yeah, how does it feel to kind of do sort of community leadership stuff? Because running a group, running Merge Masters.
It's not me.
Yeah.
I would much rather be the guy who shows up to things and not be the guy that makes things happen. But when nobody else is making things happen and you want to have a thing happen, then you make things happen and you hope for the best.
I personally believe a good hobby is one that you have the opportunity and take advantage of that opportunity to improve yourself in some way or turn it into something more. And that's one of the really nice things I think about the Nerf hobby. It's surprisingly easier to do that here without it being as stressful as one would think compared to others. And I think that's kind of some of the environment that's fostered when you go to hang out with some of these people and do these things. As long as you're a good person, I feel like a lot of other people will, usually speaking, treat you well.
Well, and self-improvement
like
was never my goal with this, but it's a good side effect that I appreciate.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. 100%.
Well, speaking of which, so I know that this year's Merge Masters is not how Merge Masters started. Would you tell us a little bit about what originally inspired you to start that, and what kind of the first few looked like? And also for anyone, just tell us what Merge Masters. Tell the folks what Merge Masters is for anyone that hasn't caught on to that, even though we've covered it on the news show like twice.
Oh, context. Yeah, context is worth 1,000 words. All right. Yes, Merge Masters was originally a Reddit. Our Nerf subreddit competition in, I think the first one was 2016, 17. Can't recall. And it was just, the idea was to have a quarterly community competition that was just within the little Reddit subreddit community. And the first competition they had was they called Merge Masters. And I believe that was headed by Landgrave Customs at the time, who was kind of a integration / cosmetics modder that was pretty noteworthy at the time. And it was a competition. Basically, we have 3 months to build a cool thing, and then they put it up for judging, and you get, I think at the time, you got like a custom flare on the Reddit, which apparently doesn't even work anymore. And I don't recall there being any other perks or benefits beyond just kind of a bragging rights, basically. But I competed in the first one with the Hellhound, which most people know from the spotlight that Walcom gave it years ago, and that was current events.
I've seen it in person.
Well,
Still jealous of that one.
Yeah, I've seen that in person. It's a sight. I'm going to say that right now. It's a very impressive build.
It was impressive for its time. It really doesn't shine much at all by today's standards, but
I think it still holds its ground.
It has a
honest.
charm to it that I think it puts it in its own spot. It's just very nice how it is as a cohesive project, and I think it's in and of itself, it just works well for what it needs to. It doesn't need to stay up to the times or anything like that. It was good as it is.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. I think if it was to happen again today, then it would probably be a little bit flashier with paint wise and stuff. But at the time, it was built to be more practical than not. But then it got all the little upgrades with the lighting effects and the stuff like that. That was not necessarily originally intended, but as a result of the competition, which the part that was really exciting about that first Merge Masters was there's a lot of integrations were much more common at the time, and there was a lot of kind of neck and neck competition of trying to outdo the next guy, not necessarily just building a thing you want to build, but you started off with your project, but this other guy built something that's a little bit cooler. So, okay, well, how do I improve mine a little bit? Maybe I can't build it as big or fancy, but maybe I can add something else that's a little bit more eye-catching or something like that. Or maybe I'll, add a different feature or give it a fancier paint job or trying to outdo the next guy. And it really just it increased by leaps and bounds the quality of integration work in general as compared to, even just months before.
I want to say that it feels like definitely back in the older days of the hobby, there was a pseudo playful arms race sort of thing going on, be it like what we were mentioning earlier before podcast started about like motors, like putting in carbon brushes and not telling anybody at your local club into your motors that you found on eBay, or be it like this random spring you found at a hardware store that you didn't know what it would do, or integrations or doing this, that, and the other. Maybe you added LEDs to a blaster, and there was a lot of fun there because things were still kind of fresh in that regard. A lot of the ideas were unexplored, and seeing what people could come up with to one up another person's build was always neat.
It was definitely much more Wild West than it is now. There's a lot of, like I said, unexplored territory and a lot of just trying stuff. There's less science involved. It was more just feeling stuff out and hardware springs, hardware parts. You didn't just buy a kit part for whatever blaster you had. You found something that worked, or overheard somebody or a rumor that something worked, and then you tried that, and then word spread from there. But I guess without getting too far off track of the original question, the Merge Masters I competed in, I believe it was the mid grade class, which I can't remember what it was called. The following competition that they had was, I believe the second one was a shotgun, like make a shotgun out of a thing that's not a shotgun, which involved some people just adding more barrels to things, or in the case of Mr. Heathpants, he basically scratch fabricated an entire like shell loading mechanism and everything into a
that thing was a thing of beauty at the time.
Oh geez, that was mind boggling at the time. And I think
was the classification called duelist, I want to say, or something like that?
That's not ringing a bell, but that's also a bell from several years ago. I'm sure through
this?
the.
What year were these?
2015. 7 years ago was Merge Masters 2. 8 years ago was Merge Masters 1, which was Mr. Nathan's.
But they had it as it ended up being an annual competition for a few years. I also competed in the second, but was not able to get my project finished in time, and then I kind of, in my shame, was not willing to try again to compete in the third year. But what I understand is that it kind of fizzled a little bit, and it was one of those things where several months passed, and people said, "Hey, were we ever going to get was there an end to the competition? Were we going to vote? Was there anything to this?" And I honestly don't remember how that all ended, and it just kind of died off, and the quarterly competitions in general just kind of died off. And I continued to kind of do my thing once I had started the channel. I think basically as a result of building the Hellhound, because I had a lot of people saying, how did you do this? How do you do this? What is your technique? And it's really difficult to put a technique into words. And so I was like, okay, well, we'll just put this in video format, and I'll just kind of explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. That way, I'm able to think through everything and say, it's not just under this situation, I do this. This is the right answer. It's, well, here's the current situation. Here's how I'm going to try to address this, and this is the reason, and this is what I'm thinking, so that people can kind of see what the process is in my head and kind of try to replicate that, and then interpret those choices and techniques into whatever they're building. And
looking through the old Merge Master stuff, I'm pulling up a bunch of the old things. Interesting.
I was also looking that your first YouTube video, your oldest visible YouTube video, is a firing demo of the Hellhound. So if anyone is curious about that build, the place to go would be just back to the beginning of Mr. Nathan's YouTube channel. It'll be linked down in the description, of course.
I believe he also has some videos on some of your earlier integration experimentation work, pre-Hellhound, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's a good watch. I highly recommend.
Yeah. It's all still very sort of relevant information and guidance for sure. So what inspired you, especially, you're talking about how kind of different the modding scene is now than how it was back then. What inspired you to bring Merge Masters back?
Well, I don't know. It was I had kind of drifted off. I mean, just personal work issues, life issues, and things kind of had me awfully distracted, and so I kind of drifted off from doing the videos and actually even doing a lot of the building and stuff. I was just in a bad headspace and was not being creatively inspired, and I was just kind of going along for a while, and I thought, I was still having people reach out to me and asking, hey, when are you going to finish whatever video series, and how did this project end up, and I'm trying to build this, and how would you do this, and so I was still fielding a lot of that information, and I thought, it would be nice to provide an opportunity, because especially as 3D printing has taken off and integration and cosmetic work like that's been kind of pushed to the side, I was noticing where on like the Facebook groups and in the Discords, somebody would pop up with an integration related question or a work in progress picture, and people would just say, oh, well, okay, whatever. And they'd kind of kick it to the side a little bit and keep talking about whatever the new worker product is. And I decided, it'd be cool to build a place where we can focus on the more traditional arts, quote unquote. There again, I'm gesticulating wildly with my fingers, of the classic integration style, where anything that's posted is valued for what it is, and there's an audience of people with similar interests who can support and offer, real useful information and support for people either having problems or just looking for ideas, or even just kicking ideas around. People that says, here's an idea I think would be cool, but I don't have these blasters, but I thought the idea is worth mentioning anyway. And so I thought, okay, well, I will figure out how to build a Discord then. And so I built the Discord and put an invite out, and I thought, what I don't want it to be, it's not a me Discord, I want it to be an integration-based Discord. And so I just figured, well, Reddit's not using the Merge Masters name, so I'll just steal that. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. I just stole that name and added it to it and was running with it as is. And it was basically the idea of the Merge Masters Discord was just to take the original spirit of the Merge Masters competitions into a just goes all the time, a continuous community, I guess. And I've heard, I actually ran the Discord. The Discord's several years old at this point. I think I put that together in 22, I think. 21,
that
22.
Sounds about right. That was around the time I believe I was made aware of it.
I can't remember when I joined, actually. When do you remember where you had actually posted when you actually made that Discord? Do you remember the spots? I don't remember. Was it on other Discords or was it like on Reddit? I don't.
It honestly might have just been, I think I just posted it on my personal, on the Mr. Nathan Instagram and maybe even Facebook. But I basically,
Okay.
I figured there seems to be the most activity on Instagram as far as integration-based stuff. So I figured I didn't want to have a big influx. I didn't want to have a bunch of just casually interested people to start off with, because then there wouldn't be as much content generated. And so I wanted to go to the highest level of interest community aspect to build the community and get kind of a baseline of kind of how things operate before opening up to a more general public. And then people have kind of filtered in, word got out, and it kind of has grown naturally up until the actual announcements for the competition, which was a result of people saying, hey, remember those competitions? We should do that again. And it's something that I've been wanting to do because I miss just the community unity of that competition, where it was something that even people who only had a casual interest were still viewing and partaking of, even if they weren't competing directly. And just that kind of creative arms race is what I think I've called it a number of times, of just, you know, trying to one up the next guy, but by creating cooler ideas essentially. And so I just basically said, well, I already stole the Merge Master's name for the Discord, so we'll just make it a Discord event. But it's also open to everybody. I mean, I tried to not keep it as a closed doors, this is our little secret club. It's just, it's operated through the Discord, since that's where I have the most prominent public face at this point anymore.
Discord's just a good way to organize.
Discord's a wonderful platform. Also, I went back and checked. Apparently, the Discord's been around since 2020.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and because I was like, when did I join? Because I'm pretty sure I joined pretty close to the start, and I joined in 2020. And then checking, it started, it looks like, in September, and I joined in October of 2020. That's wild.
Wow.
We were just talking about earlier before podcast started that there was kind of like the time in between now and then was both a long time and a short time. I think that kind of perfectly emphasizes that. You thought it was 22, and that was 2020.
Oof.
Oh,
that blur of lockdown blur. We'll just call it that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the Discord's been around for a few years, but of course this year we actually had the competition and event, and I'd love to hear from you and from Vile as a participant. Although Vile, mostly because of mayhem, Vile wasn't able to finish his project in time.
Yeah.
But just sort of how that went, and how it kind of felt to have that going. What's the community feeling like when you have a competition like that running?
Well, I've gotten a lot of really, really good feedback on it, and I've had numerous people message me and just say, thank you for making this a thing again, just because it's cool to have an actual community event. And anymore, it seems like most community activity online is new products, business, designing files and stuff. There's not as much people just having fun together the way you have at a war, only you're doing it online creatively, kind of. And it's actually gone infinitely more smoothly than I expected, and it's much larger than I was expecting. Honestly, when I first came up with the idea and committed to actually making it happen, I was anticipating like 10 people, maybe a dozen overall that would be interested, and I think I had 20 within the first 24 hours or so of making the announcement. And
That's great.
I am just blessed like crazy to have Alex, the wizard formerly of Make Test Battle, now currently wizard of Flywheel the World, who reached out and just said, hey, I'm really good with this kind of thing of managing stuff. I want to help you do streams and make this thing happen. And I said, oh, okay, cool. And if he had not stepped up, then this would have gone terribly, I imagine. And so the success of the competition, the way it's gone so far, is purely a result of him stepping up and basically running everything on the backside that is not a voice. And he has done his fair share of doing the voicing as well during the live streams. But as far as organizing the spreadsheet, which was a concept that I said, it'd be cool if the technology existed to make this happen. And he says, oh, yeah, we can totally do that. Let me go whip something up. And then later that night, he sends me this roughed out of the spreadsheet, which can probably get added. I don't know how podcasts work technically on this end, but I'm sure you could probably put a link to the spreadsheet, which is a quote unquote living
Absolutely.
document of. It's constantly being updated as the projects were entered and built and stuff like that. Anytime we got updates, we would try to add that to where it was kind of a live list of who's entered, what the current status is, and stuff like that.
It was good to have that. Actually, I personally liked it because I could keep up with everybody else who was in the competition, seeing, you know, who had entered, because you get the list of who had entered. And then if you click on the names, you can see obviously their entry photo. And then as time went on, if they were updating, you could see the build progress through their photos as it just kind of went, you know, chronologically down the list of whatever they were posting. It was really nice to see because you could see sort of, you know, there was a lot of interest, but not necessarily everybody had finished or even made progress beyond their initial start. Because there were a few people that were like that, obviously, in every category, but it was nice to at least kind of see, because out of nowhere somebody might have just, they entered, you saw nothing for like a month, and then out of nowhere, here's a bunch of photos, and you know the thing's like halfway built or something, and it was nice to kind of have that going along. And every time, obviously, Nathan, you were doing your streams, I usually would pull up the list, and I could start looking through them along with it, or see, you know, checking in either behind, like if I missed the beginning, it was nice. You could go back real quick while y'all might be looking at a particular build, and you can look at it and see the ones that, oh, okay, so and so is making more progress. Oh, okay, that's neat. And it was a really good way. I think that was a great call to do that spreadsheet. Actually, that was fantastic to do that.
Yeah, I think that was kind of part of the kind of make it or break it part of what is making this competition what it is this time, is of just having that as a resource to kind of see what your competition is doing right now. And we weren't always great at keeping it updated daily, but we tried to keep it updated weekly, or at the very least, Alex would scramble to get things updated live. Like there's quite a number of times during the stream where someone's like, "Hey, my thing's not updated. I messaged you yesterday," and he's like, "Okay, give me a second."
Yeah.
All for a minute, and so we'd go talk about something else, and then he'd say, "Okay, we're good to go." Then we'd go ahead and look at updated pictures or whatever. And
Now, was
so
was the spreadsheet actually sort of a call after the hashtag on like Instagram and stuff like that was really difficult to search for? Because I noticed that Instagram changed their search function for hashtags, and when you tried doing it, it would pull up 2, maybe 3 images, and then nobody else, even though there might be, you know, dozens of images. Yeah,
that
you
ticked me right off.
Yeah, I'm sure, because it ticked me off too, because I was going to try to pull that up on the news. But was the spreadsheet sort of a response to that?
Spreadsheet was actually part of the original concept. When I basically said I want this thing to happen, and then I think literally like that night or the next night, then Alex and I were talking about, you know, kind of what the schedule was going to look like, and especially for the streams and stuff. And I mentioned, you know, it'd be cool if we could do this so that there's one source that anybody, you know, if somebody doesn't have a Discord account but wants to compete, they have a resource where they can keep up with what's going on. You know, some people were sharing their stuff on Instagram. Some people were sharing their stuff on, I think there's one person that was doing strictly on Twitch or some kind of other thing that I'm not super familiar with, but they're like, yeah, I'm going to share it here. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but okay. But to have one resource where all the information is funneled together so you can see the whole picture if you're not in following all these dozens of people in all their various media sources and stuff. And so I think that's going to be a consistent component of Merge Masters in the future, and also future competitions that are based on the Merge Masters platform, which I guess introduces the idea that I've been approached by a couple people who want to do a similar style competition. There again in the style of the old Reddit quarterly competitions, but for other traditional modding aspects, and which could even branch into 3D design or other kinds of competitive aspects of the hobby. And people are have asked, can I help do this, or can we do something similar? And the goal, and I've spoken with Alex, was basically, let's build a platform. Let's build a
template.
Template. Thank you.
Yeah.
That future competitions can be basically, you call it something different, you call the classes something different, you have a different award system or whatever, but it's basically cut and paste, put your name in there, and it's using the same searchable, updatable function and everything that we're experiencing with the Merge Masters.
Doing the legwork for the back end, essentially, so that way you can see more of these things that will further expand competitions that might grow aspects of the hobby that haven't been focused on as much, essentially.
That's what we're hoping for.
To wit, I wanna throw something in a little bit out of order here, because in a little bit we'll be tackling questions from our Ko-Fi subscribers, and one of them has a really relevant question, so I want to toss it into the conversation here. And I should say specifically, this is from Ko-Fi backer Randall, who is a new backer of our Ko-Fi. Thank you so much for joining the Viewers Like You group. And Randall wrote one of these longer questions, and it's actually really relevant to this. I just want to read the whole thing real quick. Randall writes, as you said in your Merge Masters announcement video, there's a unique energy that the spirit of competition brings to creative problem solving. Everybody wants to outdo each other, and that leads to results that are sometimes hilarious, sometimes stunning, and always inspiring. Obviously, Merge Masters is about physically combining blasters. Without taking anything away from that, here's my question. With 3D printing now widely available and affordable, do you see a place for a contest format like Merge Masters that focuses specifically on digital remixes of open source 3D blaster designs? That competitive dynamic could lead to some amazing designs. One distinct difference would be the community not only gets to look at great work, they get to replicate it and develop a deeper appreciation of smart design as they print and assemble winning remixes. So right there, it sounds like there's at least one person who wants to jump in the way you said, and sort of use that outline to create new opportunities for people to engage that way.
Well, I think that would be awesome. It's kind of funny the way 3D design and printing is in the hobby right now. We almost don't need a competition, just because of
right.
It seems like every morning you wake up and you check the groups and there's something new popping up. But it'd be kind of interesting to focus and say, like, go with a if you could create a theme. And I think themes are really important, especially with Merge Masters and other competitions going forward, because it gives kind of a focal point of energy that everyone's directed towards, but you get to see different interpretations. So you're not really comparing apples to oranges the way like Merge Masters is here, but you'd be comparing like different breeds of apples to other breeds of apples. And so you still get a variety, but it's more central, and there's a little bit more closer competition, I would think.
You wouldn't download an apple.
I want to say, looking at the news just here in the back, a year of FNC, if you were to look at like 3D designs, the amount of times you hear one of us say, it is a competitive class 3D printed pump action Springer or something like that. There are a lot of designs that come out all the time, and we've gotten to cover a whole host of them, but definitely some kind of competition that would channel that energy into one specific zone that you don't really see as often, or maybe aesthetically it would change how stuff come out. I think that would be a good thing. I love a lot of the designs, and I love how they look aesthetically and some of the remixes. But if there were more remixes, more people putting in their personal touches into how a blaster looks, and like them to have a reason to do that, I think that would be a really cool thing. It would change things from a little bit less different of, all right, I've printed off my thing that hits 200 FPS and does what I need it to. I'll just put it in the colors I want. Whereas instead it might be, well, there's that remix and this remix and that other one, and they look different, and which one do I want to use? I feel like having more choice like that is always a good thing.
Totally.
Well, and I would love to collaborate with somebody who's more into that aspect of things, because as far as 3D printing and design goes, I feel like I'm on the opposite side of the fence peering over. I'm vaguely familiar with what goes on, but I can't speak with any kind of real knowledge. And so if somebody more in that aspect of the hobby wants to say, hey, I would like to organize or conduct a competition like this, I would love to sit down and explain kind of how we have things built and get those templates shared and set up a schedule. And I would put my support behind anything like that, just because of the value it has in that creative inspiration.
So okay, so let's talk results. Did you select winners? Was there a vote? How was this planned to resolve it?
Well, the beautiful thing about this competition is that I don't have to make a decision on who wins. Is that I'm
Not
leaving that up to the
responsible.
voters.
Yeah.
Which actually,
So is that I'm just not up on is the poll running still, or what's the situation?
it actually starts tomorrow. There's going to be a long weekend of live streams starting tomorrow, Thursday. I don't know how soon after we're recording you're actually posting this.
Will. By the time people are listening to this, it will start 2 days ago.
Perfect.
But,
So
it is not too late to catch some of the streams.
Well, okay, that works perfect because we're going to have the first 2 streams that you're going to miss, dear listeners. But the last stream that hopefully will not have happened when you're hearing this at first is probably the most important one because it'll be discussing the voting procedure. The stream starting tomorrow, we're going to take 1 class per night and just focus on the actual entrants, not people who competed, but the actual finished entrants for that class, and actually going to see if we can get as many of the builders and creators on stream in person to explain their blaster themselves. And if they are not able to join in person, then I've had a number of people send in video explanations, kind of talking through whether it's the creative process or whatever, or just special features that are not obvious in picture form. And just I want to give every entrant 3 to 5 minutes or so to focus solely on the creator's view of what they built, and as kind of the final advertisement of sorts. And then,
are you doing these streams on YouTube?
Correct. Yes.
So you'll leave the video up too. So if anyone misses that, should be able to watch it afterwards.
Yes. All of the live streams have been compiled into a playlist that's just for Merge Masters, and it's going to be part of the overall Merge Masters resource. The spreadsheets are going to be maintained as well as a resource for future inspiration, so people can see, hey, so-and-so built this thing, that's really cool. Oh, here's all the information of the process they went through to build it. All the resources all in one place that can be kind of a repository of information for the future. And so next year's event will also be compiled the same way, and it'll be kind of a archive of sorts that's easily searchable all in one place.
That's so great. That kind of documentation, I think, is I mean, that's a big part of what we try to do here at the news show, is just document the hobby as well as possible, but like to know that it's not just about people making really cool art. It's also about documenting how it was made and making that information available to people down the road who want to try to do similar stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump to another question because tying into that, as I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that you can ask our podcast guests questions and apparently have an outsized influence on the product that retail stores carry. For anyone that's listened to the last few episodes, it's so bizarre. Where people ask questions about why is this product not being sold, and the owner of the store is like, "Oh, we don't carry that anymore. I will fix that." If you want to ask questions of our podcast guests, back us on Ko-Fi. Links down in the description. Little as $5 a month gets you in the group that allows, frankly, pays for the expenses of the show, and just we pretty much break even ish, I'd say, on stuff. And it's a really big part. It's a really big part of what makes the show possible. And as a perk, as one of the perks of that, you get to ask questions of our podcast guests. But there is one other way that you can occasionally ask a question of our podcast guest, and that is by entering the raffle to be the person who gets a free question of our next podcast guest if the current podcast, it's so hard to say that over and over again, if the current guest can win our trivia game, which is coming up in a little bit. And from last episode, Retro Foam Studios was the winner of the raffle, and our previous guests, the team of Silver Fox Industries, Ryan and Jesse and Charles from Containment Crew, were able to get all 3 questions right on the trivia game. And so, Retrofoam Studios' question for you, Mr. Nathan, is how can you start doing integrations or learn how to make them? And it seems like part of the answer is check out all the resources that this community is putting out. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm sure I could probably ask you to add a link to the Discord in wherever you post links for stuff at the end of your show.
Yep.
But it's a good resource for even people who have a vague interest in the process or anything, to just be a fly on the wall, just kind of lurk for a while and just watch what people are building, ask questions. I don't think I've ever seen anybody in the Discord ask a question, earnestly about the process or anything, who didn't have like half a dozen people respond with their opinions on how to build or what their procedures are and their principles on how and why they make cuts and stuff like that, and how they integrate, whether it's mechanically or chemically or whatever else. And so just start soaking in information, join the Discord, keep an eye out for posts within Facebook groups and in the Reddit and anywhere else like that. Anywhere you see integrations being posted, ask a question, or just, like I said, just start soaking the information in and ask questions. That's probably the best way to do it. And buy blasters cheap, thrifted, even if they're broken. Just hack on shells and kind of see how they fit together and experiment with adhesives and things, and just kind of play with that until you get a kind of a handle on how everything works and build from there.
Yeah, one of the things that on pretty much any creative endeavor fail a lot.
Yep.
Is that's such an important part of especially something that you're trying to do that's new to you, is just do it and accept that you're going to put some of that stuff in your parts bin or in the garbage for always, not even just for a while you're learning. Even once you're super good at it, you're still going to be like, oh, that didn't work, but I learned something, and I'm going to start a new thing.
There's only so much work you can do on paper. I mean, you can look at pictures, look at 2 pictures of blasters together and say, oh, those look like they would fit, but until you actually start cutting, do you realize, okay, well, this blaster is this wide at this point, and this other blaster is only this wide at this point, so now I have too much overlap. Okay, well, I didn't foresee that in the 2-dimensional image I was looking at before, so, okay, well, crap, now I have to change gears a little bit. Maybe I have to add something else to cover up that gap or blend things in, and so it's...
Right.
I do that all the time still, where I'll look at 2 things and say, that looked pretty good, and then I start cutting and go, well, darn, that's... I guess I'll have to use this half of a blaster on something else, or get more creative somehow with something, and change gears a lot and let the project kind of guide itself.
I'm going to ask my own question, and I'm curious on Vile's thoughts on this as well. How do you store? I'm sure nobody actually has a good answer to this. How do you store like bits of blasters and
bins,
opened up
bins upon bins? I could tell you right now, I have some of the largest bins you can pick up. They're like the 40 some odd gallon bins. I have 3 of them that are just filled with shells. Yeah. And there is a point, and I've talked to other people in the hobby who do this stuff as well. And Nathan, I'm curious on this one if you do this as well. There is a point when it's overflowing, and I just go, you know what? I don't need this entire chunk of this blaster because it's hideous, it's ugly, it doesn't match anything. But you know what I really like? I like this one little piece right here, and I take that thing to the bandsaw, and the part I don't want goes right in the trash, and the other part goes right back in the bin.
Right.
And that's how I consolidate. Sometimes when I get to a point, I have to consolidate.
Well, where I'm sitting here, I just counted 14 totes. Granted, they're smaller totes. They're I can't even tell. 14 gallons, 15 gallons looks like. No, those are the smaller ones. Anyway, I have a lot, and some of them are actual just like pieces of shell so small that you can't really recognize what they came off of anymore, and other ones are, that's a blaster that doesn't work anymore, I'll gut it later. And I need to go through and assess what I can and cannot get rid of, because there's a lot of things that, like I said, ooh, that's a nice little piece. But there's all these other pieces that might be good for using as a backer for a joint, for making a fish plate for structure, or, well, this is a nice broad flat surface, which doesn't have any detail, but it'd be nice if I need to put a filler piece on something else. And so it's an issue that I need to address as far as efficient storage of things, because I've.
So here's how I do it. You get your bandsaw or sawzall or whatever you've got to cut quick, and you just take your bins and you put it right next to you, right in front of that item, and you just start cutting. And every time you come across, here's a good bit of advice. You keep yourself a little jar there, and every time you see a really good post, like a really long screw post that you're like, oh man, I could use this, cut it off, throw that in that little bin, cut the parts off you want, throw the parts you want in the bin, like the whatever you want to keep, and the other one in a giant trash can, and just work through them. Like spend an afternoon, spend a weekend just doing that, and you will be surprised at how much stuff you actually throw away. And you're like, wow, I've got so much room now. And then what you'll do is you'll go out and you'll buy more stuff, you fill up all the bins again, and you start the process, just rinse and repeat. That's how it works.
That's actually going through, like you just described, at least the first half, the more productive half, is kind of my next step. I actually just thinned out a whole lot of just stock blasters that I was using for loaners and things like that. I'm just trying to downsize a whole lot since I'm not running like stock games. I'm just adminning our competitive games anymore. And so we actually had a swap meet, a blaster swap meet here locally, where everybody just grouped together all their kind of stock type stuff that they're just looking to get rid of, and looking to fill local needs, where it's like, oh, I'm getting rid of this. Well, I'm looking for that. Oh, that's really cool. That's, done deal. Whatever's left, we just combined into a big pile. And one of our guys is posting that in lots on Facebook Market to raise money for the group. So everybody's making space, and we're going to be able to buy more darts and equipment and junk like that. So it kind of helps everybody.
Love that.
And so then
that's awesome.
Just got that done. That was last weekend's event. And so next, as soon as I have a little bit more floor space to sort, then I'm going to go through and, okay, I've got one Raven left. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, I've got this thing over here. Do I really need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double shots? I don't think so. So I could probably get rid of some of those, and just stuff like that. So right. I need to sort through it, because it's just totes on totes on shelves, totes on floor, totes in,
So we got a little sidetracked. I do want to ask another question, and it's about Merge Masters. So you said previous years, the only thing that we ever really got with Merge, because I came in after, that whole event had stopped on the Reddit side, and this is the first time I've actually entered into, the kind of, restart that you've started with.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, you said the only thing you would get is a piece of flare, which doesn't really work anymore. This go around, you've had a lot more support of people actually offering up items and like things for winning. Because obviously you were stating there was going to be some sort of like flare, I think you said as well on your Discord, that was going to be something else you were going to offer, but then other people started stepping in. How do you think that's gone? Like, how has that been for the competition?
Mind-blowing. When it first started, when I made the first announcement, then I was going to have a custom roles made for not each category, but each place. So there'd be 3 Merge Masters, which would get a gold role name in their in the Discord. Second place in each class would get a Merge Meister, is silver, and then third place would get Merge Maven in kind of a bronzy color. That way, as conversations are going along in the Discord, you can kind of tell, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's gold. That's really cool. And to kind of set you apart from everybody else a little bit. And that was originally going to be the extent of it. And then when Alex stepped in and said, hey, I'd like to help you run things. Also, I can donate some Flywheel to World equipment. And I was like, well, hey, I mean, the help is, more than appreciated. You don't need to do everything else. And he's like, oh no, that's good. We'll fluff it up. We'll make it fancy. And then Iron Gopher offered a set of his custom end cutters for trimming shells and stuff like that to all of the first place winners. So 3 sets of those, and each set is a large pair and a small pair, and they're very nice.
I
And
have
then-
one, by the way, and they work fantastic. I'm just going to
Gopher's
tell
teeth
anybody.
are quite the nice
Gopher teeth.
commodity to have.
Gopher teeth are, I'm just going to put it out there, Gopher teeth are some of the best tools you could ever have, especially for integration and shell cutting. Just going to put it out
Mhm.
there. So anybody who wins these, you're getting some fantastic stuff. I'm just going to say that right now. There's a nice
Value
little plug,
them. Do
Gopher.
not
Value
cut them.
They are only for
Don't cut
plastics. Do
metal.
not cut metal. They are only for plastics, but they are phenomenal. So there. Okay,
Oh,
go
boy.
as you were saying, Nathan.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, I appreciate the plug. I mean, I'm sold on him. He gave me a set for to kind of be like, hey, here's a free set so that you know what I'm offering, and I went yes. Then I also had Rainbow Mods reached out, and he actually reached out to me originally about running a competition that was more cosmetics based later on, and so I need to follow up with him on that. He later also entered. I don't think he was able to complete his build as far as he was hoping to, though. But he did offer a swag pack, which has, I think, 2 patches and then a keychain with his logo and stuff on it, and also vouchers for each class to his
that's
store,
nice.
which is rainbowmods.com, I think.
Oh, that's
it's-
actually really nice. Yeah.
And he sells good stuff. He sells kit parts. He sells printed stuff. He sells custom blasters. Really good
Yeah.
work. Really beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know that he offered. Actually, that's really cool to know. I had no clue.
Yep, and that was I think that was the most recent update, and it should be at the bottom of the spreadsheet. The front page of the spreadsheet has all the competitors and everything, and then below all that it has the prize pool, and it's been steadily growing.
That's awesome.
If there's
exciting.
one thing that I love in this hobby is people's willing to support competitions or little events or random things with donations for prize pools, and how quickly some of these things can grow to really large sizes. I know the Corvette charity is one of those ones that immediately comes to mind, or the World Foam Alliance, what they did last Thanksgiving, I believe it was.
Yes, Foamsgiving.
And I'm also working on trying to get patches now that we have a fairly legit logo. Thank you, Vile.
You're
I want to get
welcome.
some patches or shirts or something made up to be a bit more of a tangible representation of the competition and stuff for everybody. Make them available to people in the Discord anyway, but also give those out specifically for winners.
Oh, that'd be
That's
cool.
so cool.
So
love
that's we're still working on that right now. I've been going through some different websites trying to find a good practical place to get patches on the cheap. And so I'm still working on that, but I'm trying to get the competition itself kind of put to bed first, and then that can always be afterwards.
Cool. I gotta throw back to one more Ko-Fi question.
Okay.
And this ties a little bit more into talking about sort of picking up the skills and learning how to do this stuff. Iron Gopher, as who we were just talking about, maker of Gopher teeth and incredible cosmetic work and other really great work. Asks, it's no secret that you dabble in automotive modification and restoration. What skills, if any, transcend the bounds of these two hobbies? Is there any crossover worth mentioning?
Well, I would say that I guess for those who aren't as aware of that part of things, I grew up around Studebakers. That was when I was growing up. That's just what we drove. My dad had a 64 or 62 3/4 ton that he used when he was doing construction, and when we went on family road trips, we were in my mom's 64 Cruiser, and we would take that thing everywhere, and that was just normal for us growing up. And we had, over the course of my time at home, we had dozens of different cars would kind of come and go, and some stayed for a while, and some would get built up and sold, and some would get parted out to make other cars complete. And I think at any given time, I think the top, we had I think we had 15 cars on the property at once, and then it would kind of ebb and flow from there. And so I always grew up. There was always a car in the shop. There's always grease on the floor, and we were always building something. And so I just I guess I was always taught that given anything, you can improve it. You give me a ballpoint pen long enough, and I'll hot rod it somehow. And it's there's a lot of crossover. One of I guess probably the most applicable aspect would be custom cars in the 50s, lead sleds and stuff like that. It was quite often that you have give yourself a 49 Mercury, and chances are somebody's got a Corvette grill in it, or DeSoto grill in it, or Cadillac taillights, or Packard taillights, or they chop the top to bring it down, look at smoother, and chrome trim off of a 52 Buick, or there's a lot of very common ones. It was kind of the equivalent of a Raven stock. Back then, it was like guys were always cutting parts off other cars and sticking them to other cars and blending them in and putting them under 20 coats of hand rubbed lacquer, and so it's kind of a similar aspect there, where I would say I would be more akin to George Barris, or maybe even Ed Roth on that spectrum of things. But just guys that this looks really cool and all, but give me a minute and we'll do a lot of cutting on it and throw some putty around and come out with something a whole lot cooler. The substrate is totally different, between working with steel and working with plastic. But I guess the aesthetic, the ability to look at something and say, well, if I cut this off or shorten this, then it's going to look a whole lot cooler. The aesthetic balance of things and stuff like that. And so it's less of a technical crossover, as much more and more of a cosmetic, how you view things, I guess.
That visualization of it.
Yeah, I would say. And also just the performance aspect of, hey, this thing's all right, but I want to make it go faster.
Perhaps, I guess, the mindset would be one of the ways you could look at it, I suppose.
And it's funny that as I've been going, as I've been growing with the hobby, there's been dozens of crossover that I've noticed historically. One of them that really made me notice was, does anybody remember the flywheel ceiling, as it was called for a while? The thought that flywheels could not project a dart over, I think at the time it was like 115 FPS. That was like the max that we could do. And that was, all the science says this. And I remember back in, I think it was in the mid 60s, drag racing, then scientists said, there's no way to make a car go from 0 to however far, it can't make a quarter mile in, any more than whatever miles per hour. It's scientifically impossible, and blah, blah, blah. And then Don Garlitz did it like the next year. Basically said, oh yeah. And, so we started playing with Crush. We started making better flywheel. We had essentially traction issues. Okay, well, let's put slicks on this car. Okay, cool. We'll close the gap. We'll make better flywheels. There's a lot of crossover as far as that's concerned. And I'm even noticing it now, where it's becoming less of a building a blaster or car in your garage and taking it down to the strip, on the weekend. Now you actually have companies producing ready to run, ready to race, quote unquote, blasters. There's a lot more corporate branding. You're seeing guys at competitions wearing jerseys. They're representing actual organized groups. We're seeing the Blaster Tag Association versus the SCTA, the Southern California Timing Association, governing bodies for both hobbies as they have grown larger. More corporatism in Nerf, the same way drag racing got in the late 60s with the Superstock Wars and stuff like that. You're seeing, Dart Zone making a competition and selling competitive blasters compared to like the AFX class, factory experimental race cars that were basically race cars built off of production cars from the factory that we're playing with. And so I've wanted to sit down and just organize all that and look at all the correlation between, hot rodding in the 50s and even late 40s compared to NIC, Nerf, and following both hobbies all the way up to kind of present day. And then, at what point is Nerf so corporate that it's not fun anymore, kind of like what happened to drag racing in the 70s.
Are you familiar with the the Asian Armory spreadsheets that where they track FPS records?
No.
Oh, you would be very into this. There's a lot of documentation about how like certain records for different ammo types, what they were achieved with, what exact setups they were achieved with. It's fascinating, and they set new goals to try to beat new. They archived the 500 FPS short dart channel a little while ago because they reached that and set a new 557 right now. I think is the current goal.
Jeez.
That's being headed for. And but the degree to which these things are documented in great detail, I think, is a really cool resource. I've used their information for a couple stories about there was a trivia question about plunger tube volumes, and that was
Mhm.
like a spreadsheet that was on there as a result of that. I'll have to link you to that.
Yeah, I would appreciate
fascinating.
that. That sounds like an interesting read.
Yeah, you bet. Okay.
You want to ask Gopher's second little question there?
Yes. We also Gopher also wants to know why is Mr. Pibb the superior choice to Dr. Pepper?
Because he's more casual and doesn't try to use his achievements as some kind of like to hold it over everybody else.
That's a solid answer, I would say.
That's fair.
I would rebuttal
fair.
you with the new Pibb Extra.
I'm not a soda pop guy. I'm sorry. That sounds like a reference I don't understand.
Fair enough.
What's the there's like an even more generic than
Mr.
Mr.
K,
Pibb. There's
I
like
guess.
there's like a grocery store one.
He's not even using his full last name. It's just like a nickname now. It's just Mr.
Yeah.
K. I can't think if there's
just-
anything else because there's like Dr. Thunder or something else like that. And
it should just be like some guy drink. It should just be called something like that. Anyway, good answer. Solid. Very, very good. And now we get to see how good your answers are when we put you up against our hobby trivia game.
I'm petrified.
We've got 3 questions for you in this little game that we are calling Marge Masters. You're running Merge Masters now, but how much do you know about the intersection between Nerf and The Simpsons?
0. I've probably not seen that since probably the first season when it first aired back in 90 whatever.
I think it was actually
80.
Wasn't it?
Was it
like late 80s?
89 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought. I don't remember.
So this will be interesting.
So if you're able to
I'm gonna
get
be
2
worse
out
than
of 3 of these
Brett.
questions, and again, as we always remind people, the goal is for you to win. There's hints built into a lot of the questions. But if you're able to get 2 out of 3, and again, I didn't run the raffle.
I thought you marked it down on the outline who would win.
No, that was
No,
the
that was
person
that was
got
last
the
one.
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll apologize in
okay.
advance.
Okay, hold on. Random.org. I need, oh my God, verifying you're human. Get out of here. Okay, there's 16. One of them is me. We got number 11. We're gonna, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, wait, no, why did you sign up? I landed on I have to run it again because it landed on someone who already gets a question. 12. Okay, Bigfoot, which is great. Bigfoot is a valued member of our community, a frequent contributor to the show, and someone that Vile and I got to meet at Maryland Mayhem this year. If Mr. Nathan is able to get 2 out of 3 podcast questions, you will get to ask a free question of Foam Mando, our next podcast guest for episode 35. So, let's get into it. Who wants to read the first question?
I can go. Let's do it.
Go for it.
All right. In the B plot of a season 27 episode of The Simpsons, Nelson is briefly seen using a blaster that looks like a blue Nerf Vulcan, firing green and purple darts. from inside Ralph Wiggum's treehouse. What is the title of this episode? Is it A, Treehouse of Horror 26, B, Simprovised, or C, Flight of the Water Balloon?
That is an excellent question. And I'm sure that the majority of your listeners are going, oh, this one's so obvious. It's obviously whatever the answer is. So I'm going to totally guess, because I have zero frame of reference. I'm going to say B, whatever B was.
It was Simprovised. And you would be right, actually, on that.
Because that feels good.
That,
Wait, what? Just out of curiosity, is it a complete guess, or was there any level of reasoning?
Treehouse was mentioned in the context, and that's usually their Halloweenish thing, and
yes,
that didn't seem like a very Halloweenish situation. And the other episode, or C, just sounded like something you made up.
Wow, his level of reasoning is actually really good.
Don't mess with me, man.
Yep. Yes, it is. You want to tell him what C is?
Yeah, so Flight of the Water Balloon is actually an episode of Nerf House Showdown.
That explains why it sounded dumb.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I was like, yeah, I didn't even know of Nerf House Showdown, to be honest. So that even that one, I was like, what the heck? I think
the only reason I was even aware of it is because I believe Brett watched all of it and then covered it on his channel one time.
Yeah, forgot about that. Oh, that's good.
Nicely done.
Just got to get
Very
one
well
more.
done. All right, we're already one up.
Mm-hmm.
Grims, you want to read the next one?
Yes, my pleasure. Nerf has come up with a few additional times on the show, which of the following is not a real Nerf reference from The Simpsons. Is it A, Bart brings a distractor dart blaster to school and gets suspended when he creates a scare? Is it B, after designing a car, the average...
No, you got to read the whole thing.
Oh, I wasn't sure if that was additional context that I wasn't supposed to read or not. Okay.
No. You read the whole thing.
Okay. So A, Bart brings a distractor dart blaster to school and gets suspended when he creates a scare. Marge is initially upset, but when Principal Skinner testifies in front of Congress to get the toys banned, Marge defends them because kids have a right to play, even if it's a little scary sometimes. B, after designing a car for the average American man, Homer describes its reveal presentation as powerful like a gorilla, yet soft and yielding like a Nerf ball. Or C, a self-driving car company's office building features a Nerfatorium, a huge room filled with Nerf blasters for employee entertainment. Marge eventually threatens Smithers and Mr. Burns with a Goofa bazooka. If you would like, I can also reread the question.
I'm feeling A.
You would be correct.
It had a bit more context. And the third one sounded...
No,
it also didn't have as much of a punchline.
No, it definitely didn't.
You caught on to. A little too feel good for The Simpsons. Although you can imagine how that would have headed. I actually want to toss a picture real quick in the chat here of the Nerfatorium, because if you look at it, there's some stuff that definitely looks like specific blasters. Interestingly, I'd say the little guy on the bottom right looks kind of like a Busby monorail.
It almost
and
does.
And there's definitely like the 8-shot, the shotgun thing, the elite one right above it. Yeah, there's some fascinating ones, and you can actually see. So there's the door on the right, which is like in the plot of the episode. That's the door, I think, to the server room, and they wind up going in there and like shutting the business down. Right next to it, there's a red and orange blaster that actually has a name label on it. That's the Goofa bazooka.
Okay.
And Marge winds up picking it up and pointing it at them.
There's a hyperfire in the background. I didn't even notice.
And
behind the glass,
hyperfire off to the left.
Yeah, and vortex discs. That's so funny.
All right. So you're already 2 out of 3, but we're asking you the third question anyway.
Might as well. I'm still here.
So here we go. Despite Nerf popping up on the show, there has never been a Simpsons-themed dart blaster from a major brand, although Hasbro has made a handful of Simpsons toys and games over the years. Which one of these is a real Simpsons toy? A. What would Homer do? An electronic Simpsons trivia game that looks like Homer sitting at his workstation at the power plant. B. Homer Simpson Mr. Potato Head with the tagline, "It's Homer Starchson." C. Simpsons Scrabble, including a dictionary of additional words from the show that are legal for play, including quidjabo and dope.
See, I was thinking B at first, but because I do know that they make pretty much anything out of Mr. Potato Head anymore. I have a Mr. Potato Head Optimus Prime that I bought many years ago. I thought was cool. But the C, I also know that Scrabble, is that Milton Bradley? Same guys that do Monopoly, and everything has Monopoly. And so that seems like a natural evolution of the whole licensed board game gimmick. So I'm going to say C.
You are correct because all of them are correct. Any one of them would have been a correct answer.
Well, that's handy.
They actually make a little. They make this. The first one is it's like Homer sitting at his desk, and it's like one of those like 20 question style like trivia games where you press a button and like Homer asks you a question or something. And
that one sounded fake.
Yeah, it's real.
Oh, all right.
It's pretty weird. And yes, the Mr. Simpson, the Homer Simpson Mr. Potato Head package actually says it's Homer Starchson.
Mine was Optimash Prime.
Oh,
so
yeah, see?
The puns are just rolling in.
That's better. That's better. That's way better than Homer Starchson, in my opinion. There is also a Simpsons Monopoly, but that felt a little too obvious.
Mm-hmm. Well, very good. Well constructed.
3 for 3. Congratulations. Beret will be very upset.
Usually, I'm better at everything than Brett.
Oh.
Congratulations, Bigfoot. I will be in touch about getting you a question for Foam Mando in our next episode, and I got to figure out what I'm going to ask him about. So that'll be a good time. Let's move on to talk about something different. We have been covering over the last few episodes, including in this episode, Nerf's new series, which sure looks like something. It's called N-Series, and it's one of these things that, it was like leaks and not a lot of detail and just kind of weird for a long time. We had no idea what it was, and then we finally sort of just got pictures of it. And there's a lot going on with the design language that I think is kind of indicative of the direction Nerf has been going anyway, where rather than, a mostly full body shell that has paint and detail applied to it, it's multiple pieces that sort of fit together to create color differentials just because they're molded out of different plastic. It's got the kind of bright colors that I personally love to see on blasters, which is great. But maybe most key is it has a new dart type that nobody really knows what to make of yet. They appear to be sort of 3/4 darts. They have a lot in common with Ultra in some ways. They have the little nub on the back, and they look like they're made out of a different foam. We have very little to go on, but to me, they kind of look like they don't look like Ultra foam, and they don't look like normal foam, but they look like more like the foam that like some of the older arrows are made of. That's like a little more stiff, and like the cells look like they're larger in the foam. Anyway, what do we all think of this? Who is the target audience here? Why are they doing this? How are customers going to react to the lack of compatibility with other products? Is the hobby ever... Again, we don't really know. This is all speculation, right? But like beyond just having the pictures, but like will the hobby ever care about these? Is there any reason that these might perform in a way that any of us would do anything with?
I think I don't know. Actually, Grim, you go ahead.
Looking at these, it's interesting because I remember seeing some old documentation of previous design language and where the inspiration for stuff like N-Strike came from. And then I know with Elite and some of the rival blasters, there was a little bit of inspiration from like trying to grab that Call of Duty audience from people into that was popular at the time. But as times have changed, I'm noticing these are a lot more vibrant. They are very attention grabby in their colors. They are in large blocks of color, and they still have some of that like in strike feel in certain zones where you're like, oh, that's distinctly a little bit more like tactical inspired. But the whole thing has a more fun feeling to it, if that makes any sense. The things are larger, the shapes and everything that comprise it. Um, so it's definitely a different aesthetic approach from N-Strike, but it's still distinctly Nerf. And I kind of like it. Like, I would prefer there be more paint, but it doesn't look objectively bad aesthetic wise at the very least. I'm just not fond of the ammo.
I would say there's something interesting about the shell, and it's something I'm a little worried about. Mostly because those of us who do integrations, we're looking for ABS in particular because of attachment methods. Nerf or Hasbro has used other types of plastic, and it's usually like a polyethylene, which is very difficult to bond to. Most of our attachment methods do not bond. Nothing really does. And some of these newer blasters, let's say the double punch, a lot of that blaster shell is sort of that rubbery kind of, plastic that is very difficult to bond to. So anybody who does integration works, that is sort of a kind of a bad sign. Is it and I would assume on this blaster it would probably be some of the brighter colors, like the blue is probably ABS, but then the other one's probably a polyethylene, because again, looking at the double punch, and even if you look right above the front barrel, that design language is very similar to the double punch because of that, just the way that sort of bright piece comes down. It looks just like the front of the double punch right before the two oscillating barrels. I think the hobby can still do something with it because the magazines for this new ammo type look larger, and doing a half dart, right? Like so many other ones, they did it with ultras as well, right? There was half dart kits for a lot of the mag fed ones. I don't think it's impossible for people to make stuff. My only concern is the plastics, because that makes it difficult for painting. It makes it difficult for integration work. It makes it difficult for some other stuff. But if it's mostly just trying to have a fun blaster, I don't think it's necessarily a bad one, because it's like it's another iteration on sort of the shape and the style of the Raven, which was a very, like, a lot of people just love the Raven in general in that platform. And obviously we had the Moto Blitz, and now we have this. The dart type, I am curious if it is Hasbro trying to capture back ammo types, because they tried Hyper, and Hyper didn't really play out well. And, obviously they jumped on Gel. Gel obviously has just gone, just vanished off the shelves. And Ultra didn't really take off. They tried it for a while. It seemed to do okay. And I'm wondering if this is sort of an in-between of the Nerf, like just standard Elite darts, and Ultra.
I think Ultra was for them a financial success, but I think it didn't just have long-term legs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But that's what I'm wondering.
Did sell a lot.
Because we can see design elements with the mag. It's very similar to the speed that was in Ultra. The darts have a very similar shape, but it's sort of the same foam, or closer to a foam of the old, Elite darts. I'm just curious if they're trying, because at the end of the day, it's always going to be an arms race of buy our ammo, not theirs, right? And
Yeah.
you have X Shots now got their own darts. They even have their own kind of pro darts. Dart Zone obviously has their pro darts, and then they also have their Adventure Force waffles and the Dart Zone full lengths that you can get, like the whatever they are, the chilies or whatever. There's so many like competitors out there. There is no reason to buy an Elite, and I'm wondering if this is their their kind of like step to sort of split it in between one of their other darts and elites and sort of come up with a new one that's sort of an in-between. Because even if it is shorter, if it's like 3/4 of the length or whatever it is, you know, maybe that makes it more accurate compared to the standard full lengths. You know, I don't know. There's
Maybe.
a lot
A lot of it depends on weight distribution and stuff, right? Because
they have shorter heads on them too.
Yeah. So, well, because I mean, remember, was it the X Shots old darts were incompatible with so many different things, but because of their particular qualities, out of the right blaster, they performed in like crazy ways. Just because they were lighter, and so they could go farther. And now we have half dart, like all these varieties of half darts that are supposed to do similar things to that. They're making on the boxes for these blasters, they're making a lot of accuracy and performance claims, but they're not making specific performance claims. We haven't seen any range claims. We haven't seen any I
don't know. The box says
numerical claims.
Extreme accurate, speed, distance.
Right.
The three, which is interesting.
But they're not saying any numbers.
True, yeah.
Normally these blasters say shoots up to X feet.
Yeah.
And they're not saying any of that stuff. And I feel like that's just the hobby and content creators keep calling them out on range claims. It's like if they put a number on the box, someone's going to take it to their field and shoot it on a YouTube video, and it's not going to go that far. They're going to be like, what the heck, Hasbro? And they're just like, it's not worth it anymore. So that kind of leaves us in a speculatory position of just really having no clue what the goal is here. This is an 8-and-up blaster, right? So like, is their goal here to create a new dart type that A, you have to now buy the new dart types, but B, maybe it offers something at that lower power level that short darts don't make sense for, or I don't know, that's like different than because I mean, you know, it like if you shoot an elite dart, they're inaccurate. We know this. They're bad in terms of accuracy and consistency. Maybe this is intended to be more consistent and accurate at low power numbers. Maybe that's the specific design goal of this dart.
That's possible. I can see it.
My take with it, which I've said this a couple times with Ultra, and I don't know with you as a parent, KT, if your experience is different, but when I was at any local arenas and I talked to parents, they didn't really seem to care that Ultra was a different ammo type. At first, they were a little frustrated when their little Timmy wanted like the new Ultra Blaster and it took different ammo, mostly because it meant when Grandma and Grandpa got them like ammo over Christmas, they had to specifically be careful what to recommend so they get the right ammo. But once they got it, they're like, oh, these don't break as often. The kid seems to like them and they fly farther. Okay, I'm cool with this.
Right.
The average consumer doesn't care about what an FPS is, how accurate it is, or if it's a new ammo system. If the kid wants it and it's at a price point they can acquire it at, they're usually fine. And I think, honestly, that's okay. I guess it's just like, I feel like we kind of forget from where I was coming from. We were already replacing the entire internals on these things at this point. We were reinforcing our long shot bolt sleds, and let's not even pretend we weren't using the stock in-strike breeches. They weren't long enough, you know. We couldn't get the performance numbers we wanted out of them. We were already fabricating our own stuff or making something out of brass or buying now stuff from Worker that completely replaces the whole system. Someone is going to make something that will make it take half darts. It'll potentially hit harder out of the box because it's firing a larger dart when we convert it. So if the shells are good, we can maintenance them. I think we'll be okay. You know, the kids will be happy. We'll be happy. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. It'll all be fine. And that's just kind of how I've made my piece on it, I guess. The people who want something that's really competitive, they'll just get a 3D printed blaster. The people who like to tinker and like to integrate, as long as the plastic is good, we'll find a way, as we always do. You know, it'll work out.
I am
Do you have any
curious
thoughts on this, Nathan. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I am curious about that mag, because when you look at the mag, you know, normally on standard, you know, Nerf mags, it's a straight line, and they plug, you know, when you put them in that straight line, like there's a lip that goes all the way around it.
Oh,
Look at the lip.
right.
Look at the lip on this mag.
Oh, that's so
It's
weird.
at like a 5-degree angle, or 5 or 10, whatever. It's like it's at a shallow angle, and that's interesting to me because
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
if
every blaster that uses these mags will have to have the same angle.
yeah, unless it's like the Speed where it was the one mag in the whole lineup that only
Right.
used or could be used on one blaster, and it makes me
Yeah.
wonder because that's the only thing that's kind of glaring to me. Now
So
that's
the
not
thing we
that's not
really need to
problematic for
see-
mods, but you know, compatibility is weird.
The thing we really need to see here is images of the pinpoint. That is the one that says it's taking a 10-round magazine. So if
Yeah.
that thing shares the same locking mechanism similar to the Speed, it's not the same, but like this blaster has a similar mechanism, but that's not quite the same to the Speed. If it has that same locking mechanism, it has that same angle, I think it'll be safe to assume that the rest of the magazines will be compliant with these
Yeah.
ones. If not, then they
Right.
could just be doing proprietary for every blaster kind of thing.
I can't. That would.
That would be a crazy
I don't know. That would
concept.
be so strange.
Yeah, it would be.
We also know, of course, that the Infinite is belt fed. And I think we had the realization while we were working on the script for that it kind of looks based on. So I want to kind of clarify this a little bit. All the descriptions that we have for these are translated. Thanks to, I think it was Buff Daddy that was.
It was
sorting a
Buff
lot of
Daddy,
that
or I
out
think it
and-
was Bigfoot, maybe. Let me
Daddy,
go
Bigfoot.
check real quick because
Yeah,
it was. Let's see here. Bigfoot. Bigfoot was the one who posted
it
the
was Bigfoot.
descriptions.
Okay, my bad. Thank you, Bigfoot, for finding that stuff. So those descriptions are translated, and so there is sort of a lack of clarity in maybe some of the language, but the translated description for the Infinite in particular is high capacity blaster, innovative combat belt design for easy and fast reloading. The belt can hold 40 darts. Possibility of quick firing of several darts in a row or using the pump action mechanism. It contains 80 darts. I am interpreting that as being able to be fired quickly, which is probably a battery operated blaster, because it is that or using the pump action mechanism. It could very well be an AEB like the Vulcan, which I believe this is the first time we've had that mechanism that can be used both as an AEB and a pump action blaster since then.
I believe that would be the
Right.
first. I remember also the image that we've been referencing a lot, which was the one from the Hasbro thumbnail. Some people are like, oh, there's no way that doesn't look like any other Nerf blaster. Well, now that we're seeing all these other ones, it looks aesthetically similar. The darts look similar, but I was like, well, it can't be the Infinite now that we know that's chain fed. But then Blasterface point out to me is like, take a look at that. That doesn't look like it would be a magazine. You can see the darts part of the way
does.
down the middle. But the thing is that
You are
these new
totally right.
ammos have a nub on the back, so you could secure it that way from the back of the nub. And his suggestion was that maybe that's the chain, and it just looks weird in this image. Because
or the chain is going up in one side of the thing and making an almost direct turn down.
Exactly.
As opposed to, like, we're used to seeing chains go in the side and come out the other side. There's no reason that a chain that's flexible enough can't go straight up into the blaster and loop up and over and come straight back down. And in fact, I think that would be better in a lot of situations. Like if you're going to try and run around with a blaster with a chain, I feel like that would work at least as well.
The other thing I would say is look at the Sprinter. The mag looks nothing alike to the one in that image. So either this is concept art of a blaster that never made it to production, or this is a blaster and it's using a completely different like magazine setup, and it potentially could fit that theory that Blasterface had that it's the chain.
Yeah.
Because it is also the only pump action so far we have seen out of the images that we have surfaced.
That rings likely to me. I mean, I'm semi convinced that this is in fact the Infinite. I think and honestly, I think maybe the concept of the name is that you have the chain, if you reconnect it to itself, is an infinite loop.
Yeah, Or if there's some kind of way in which, because if we're talking about it potentially using the nub to hold in the back end of the dart, maybe say there's an opening in the top section, maybe you could drop them into the chain when it's in the chamber. So therefore you could drop it down the chain, making it very quick loading in a more economical way to the Infinus tried. But that's just more out the wazoo, unsubstantiated theory crafting there.
Yeah. Well, this is our time to speculate and interpret and make our guesses.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on this, Nathan?
Only that Nerf apparently didn't learn their lesson from Ultra, which was, I don't know. You said that you imagined that Ultra was ultimately profitable, but I have to wonder, based on how aggressively they marketed it from the get-go, with their big dog and pony show that they had, that was the whole Ultra One competition thing, and then like every influencer celebrity had like 30 of them, and this, that, and the other thing, but then nobody really ever bought them after the initial purchase of what is this thing, and then everybody went, this thing's not all that great, and then 4 people thought they were cool. It's like, if I'm not going to bash on this thing yet, only because I don't. Maybe this new dart type does something that we don't know about, and while the traditional dart that we know and love has been in existence since the late 90s, when they went to that micro dart to begin with, it's been the kind of the standard. Like, they've done other weird stuff. They did Vortex. Vortex was popular, and it's not practical necessarily, but people still love it because it did something unique. Rival did something unique. Even Mega XL did something unique. It didn't sell very well, but it was still very passionate. People are very passionate about it. Ultra didn't really seem to do anything good enough that was different to merit how weird it was. And so if this is some kind of earth-shattering new technology, and this is great, we got a solid dart. That means we can put a ton of pressure behind without blowing the dart apart. But like you mentioned, we got a tiny head on there. Unless that head is super dense, how ballistically stable is this going to be under any kind of performance, honestly?
Well, the thing that I saw in some of the Instagram reviews that I'm curious about is some people said it bruised their kids, and that sounds weird. That doesn't sound like your average Nerf dart. I'm hoping
that's the opposite of what Nerf is supposed to be.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's just that it was like a sensitive skin kind of thing, or these things actually have more punch to them, or the heads just don't compress. But that's something to interestingly take note of whenever the next, like, the actual official reviews come out.
For sure. I mean, this might be this might come out and we say, wow, this is it does some unique thing, or it has some unique feature that is desirable. Then that's cool. But if it's just another weird thing in order to be proprietary, so that they're not losing sales to Dart Zone and other companies that make better darts, then that's dumb. And like you said, as soon as it hits the shelves, probably within 3 days, we're going to have half-length adapters and everything else for it. So I'm not overly concerned about how useful and practical it is as a product. It just seems like Nerf refuses to make a good dart because they're so busy making proprietary darts. And it's like, if they just made good quality darts in the first place that were affordable, they probably could have avoided a whole lot of other research and development on Ultra and this and everything else. Hyper, things like that, that's just really not taken off.
I guess I'll kind of like play the devil's advocate to my own point earlier, where I was kind of just like, well, it's not going to matter ultimately. The parents won't care and we'll still be able to mod them. But I guess I can also understand other people's frustrations, because if Hasbro did just, by hobby terms, make a good dart, they would largely be rid of any of the negative press they get on social medias. And the kids still wouldn't notice, but they also wouldn't dislike it. They'd be like, oh, I can hit my stuff more often. Cool. And then that would be the end of the day for them. The parents wouldn't bat an eye, but like all the negative press would be kind of gone.
Yeah, it seems like focusing effort and money in the wrong direction. But the blaster itself, I like the box art more. It seems a little bit longer and leaner, a little bit more aggressive. But when I saw the actual photograph of the product, it's a bit clunkier, but also kind of like the stock lacks a lot of character. It's kind of brickish. The front end, like from from like the flywheels forward, and the grip and everything looks all right. Foregrip looks a bit cramped. It's got a thumb hole, but that's a tiny hole. I mean, I'd cut one up probably, but I'm not going to race out and buy one.
I'm really hoping this AFG on this blaster is anything like the Alien Menace Incisor. That is to date the comfiest grip my hand has ever felt on a stock blaster. If it's anything at all like that, I will adore that thing. I already love the aesthetic. I love the bullpup nature of it. I would run it. I would like convert it to half darts and run it if that is comfy and like it can get downsized for elite darts. Because my other thing here is that muzzle looks really large. So I'm thinking anything, if it is chambered for smaller darts, it won't have an effect on barrel drag because it may as well not have one.
Yeah. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. How's that?
That's kind of how I'm feeling about it.
Well, ultimately, it's one of those things where, well, you know, time will tell. Someone's gonna get their hands on it. Someone in the hobby is gonna get their hands on it sooner than we think, I'm sure. So,
probably by the time this podcast gets posted.
I mean, what Buff Daddy said there was already the shipping manifest, right?
Possible, yeah, entirely possible and likely. I mean, presumably, you know, if some Instagram influencers and stuff already have them in hand, they must already be in the U.S. It's just a question of when someone will ask for them at Walmart or some stock person will put it on the shelf early or whatever.
I think we might even have some of the UPC codes and some of the earlier ones. I'm gonna have to go back and check because I saw some barcodes early on, so we might have those already. If we do, I mean, join the Discord. You'll be able to find them yourself. Maybe you can go on the hunt, and maybe you'll be the first person to find them in stores.
Indeed. More eyes means more interesting things being found earlier. And speaking of more, we mentioned earlier how frequently 3D printed designs keep coming out. And I want to, you know, this episode, we saw so many B cars and D cars and P cars and just all kinds of cars because people have really been innovating in that space a lot lately. And I wanted to end with a fun little question. Because one of the other things that we saw, which was a little more unique this episode, is a remake of the of the stock from the Raider, redesigned as a buffer tube stock. This design really struck me. Obviously, you know, it's a really detailed recreation of the original stock, put together very, very carefully by Gemini. It matches so many of the details, but then it's modified to be a buffer tube stock instead of an N-Strike stock, and I thought that was really, really cool. I know a lot of people love that stock. And so what I wanted to ask everybody here, what one major brand accessory, other, I guess, than the Raider stock, would you like to see a more functional remake in this sort of style of? What is something that you would love to be able to just like print your own version of something that you remember or often use from an existing product? I'll start actually. I'm obsessed with the Nitron scope. The
Nitron scope is one of the greatest looking Nerf accessories I think to date.
So good. If I could print one that was just Picatinny, same sort of similar concept, right? If you had a printed design based around it and it was just a recreation of the Nitron scope, but instead of a Nerf rail, it was a Picatinny thing on the bottom, and you could modify the insides to put lights and stuff in it really easily. I'd put those on everything. I mean,
there is a printable one.
Is there?
Yes.
What?
It came out.
Oh my god! Wait. Okay, there's a printable one, but it's for Nerf rail.
Is it Nerf rail?
Builder BB did it. Yeah, it says it remix. Oh wait, Hold on, this is a remix of a Thingiverse file. Maybe the Thingiverse one is Nitron scope. This is a replica of the Nitron Major. Try to make it as close as possible, but you probably with a grabby piece. No, this so the geometry exists. So someone would just need to modify the bottom end of it to fit on Picatinny, as far as I can tell. One person just did like a remodel or a scan or something of it, and then someone else remixed it to actually have a Nerf rail attachment.
Oh, okay.
And put that on printables. Builder BB did that. But I don't see a version for Picatinny. So, if anyone's out there, do it. That's my pick. I would love to have access to that.
Well, it wouldn't count as 3D printed, but when you did say what a remake of a major brand accessory, I would like to see a better version of the Thermal Hunter scope. Something that's a little bit more dialed in.
Cool.
That had the
That'd be cool.
however that worked.
Not as chunky.
Yeah.
Not as
something
not
that
as
looked
blocky.
looked a little better and worked a little better, but I just thought that was a cool gimmick.
Functionally the same concept.
Mhm.
I mean, like, you know what someone definitely could do, because I've opened one of those things up. You could just design a 3D printable shell to replace the electronics of the Thermal Hunter scope. Like, the scope itself doesn't work terribly. There's probably a way that we could just tweak its functionality a little bit. And if someone could at least solve the cosmetic problems by just designing a new shell for it that can be printed.
I actually modified the internals of a Nitron scope that's integrated into the top of my Jackal project, which was my second year Merge Masters build. I actually fit most of the internals into the Nitron scope, and I only had to have to relocate the little sensor thing up front, which was going to be mounted on the front of the blaster. I never finished the project, but I know Grim Reaper took that to the next step and made it work, and so...
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I have one of those dismantled that I'm probably going to build into a build that I will someday finish, based on Grim Reaper's work as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great pick.
But if it had to be
Grim?
specifically 3D printed product, I've always been more fond of the Stockade stock than the Raider stock. Although the Raider stock is good. But if there's more of a buffer type attachment where you just made the top end a little bigger to accommodate the tube, keep the other more kind of wireframe aesthetics a little bit more, would be kind of cool.
Stockade stock is a nice one. The one I would want is, because the stock one is kind of flimsy, and everybody always complains about it being flimsy. If you could just make a nicer one, that, because I just love the geometry, I love the shape of it. The Spectre stock, folding Spectre stock, because I like the shape, I like the sort of, wire frame and how it kicks out, for that stock. I like it a lot, especially when it's in the folded up position. It's great, but when you unfold it, it's basically useless because it just bends under any pressure. But if I could get one of those, that would probably be my pick, just because it's such a unique one that you don't like. We have folding stocks and stuff like that, but they're all buffer tube folding or something like that. They're big and chunky. I like that wire, much thinner frame like that, because those to me are just nicer.
Right.
I've been kind of stewing on this one for a bit, because most of my answers already have some kind of answer. The only kind of stuff that I really used in Strike attachment wise was the stocks, and the 3 stocks I used were the modulus storage stock, the one that held darts, not mags. I used a demolisher stock, and I used I want to say it was the lightning storm stock. So I started with the storage stock when I used flywheelers. Then I moved over to the demolisher stock in between when I went over to springers, because it was solid. And then I eventually found my favorite, which is the lightning storm. The lightning storm already has a 3D printed counterpart. I'm still personally prefer the injection molded. The demolisher stock has a 3D printed solid version, so that would leave the storage stock. It's kind of similar to the Raider, so it has the same problem where if you shoulder into it, it collapses, which is why I moved on to other stuff. But if I could see a 3D printed, like similar to this Raider stock buffer tube version of that, but using the larger space it had, which is what made it called the storage stock, that it could be used as like a battery stock, that would be really, really cool. Like a 3D printed buffer tube version that could hold a LiPo battery. I think that would be really neat. Aesthetically, it looked really good. It felt good to shoulder. That would be my pick.
It's a nice stock. I've cut it up to actually turn it into a battery storage, actually, for an integration build. It's a really nice stock, though. It feels good.
Okay, hold up though. You just said 3D printed solid has a version of the
Not like they used to
Demolisher
have
stock?
something that wasn't the same, but it fulfilled the same purpose. It held 2 Demolisher rockets in
Oh,
the
I
back,
see.
and it was like, it was stiff. The only reason I was really using that stock for any length of time is it was the only stock I had that was long and it didn't collapse in on itself. And so I could
Okay.
shoulder that when using a Springer at the time.
Here's my thing though. I would actually love take the Demolisher stock concept, but instead of having take the same design basically, but instead of having one receptacle for a rocket, put 2 receptacles for Mega XL. That would work with so many cool master keys.
Because I know,
and it's a classic
Oh.
look. It would just be really nice.
I know 3D Printed Solid does one that holds 2 Demolisher. I wonder how easily it could be rechambered for Mega XL.
Oh, I'm sure pretty easily. I mean, it would be a totally new geometry, but like you start by just changing the size of those little cups. Yeah, I just think that would be cool. I know that, Mega XL is pretty popular and it serves a lot of the same kind of like grenade like secondary fire function on a lot of setups. So there's a thought. That'd be pretty cool. So yeah, designers, you have your tasks. Hit us up. I mean, like, realistically, like, the chances of, like, Vile at some point just putting doing the Nitrons, just slapping the Picatinny thing on the bottom of the Nitron scope is non-zero.
I mean,
That
that's a pretty easy one. I could probably do that.
Yeah. Half a stream,
Yeah, half a
get that
stream.
slapped out.
Just knock
So
it out.
I found it. It's the Dretchenbrecher, and I'm sure I absolutely obliterated that German stock, and it holds 2 or 1, depending on which version you get. And it is on the 3D Printed Solid website. I'll link this in the little host guest voice chat for you to see.
Great, because, oh, I see. No, I found it. Oh, those are cool. I like those. 3D Printed Solid does great. Okay, we're still editing the show. Vile, are we putting that interview in the show?
I personally
Did
would
you
like
record
to,
a thing for it?
but we're
Okay.
getting stacked on this show. I didn't think we were gonna get so
I mean,
stacked. I was like, hey, this will be
No,
great.
no. It
I'd
would
love
actually
to.
be like like if you just need a little intro blurb
Yeah.
for it.
Yep.
Just like 3D Printed Solid's doing a cool. We're just producing the show and the podcast right now.
Yeah.
It's fine.
No,
It's fine. I'm already looking at
just
what
a
I'll
little-
say
just-
that needs to be done.
Because I really want people to see that stuff.
Yeah.
So like just a little segment that's just like
No, I'm totally.
3D Printed Solid is working on these cool experiments, doing this thing. We talked to him at Maryland Mayhem. Here's part of that interview. That's literally it.
Yep.
Just do that.
Yep.
It'll be great. And I'll edit the interview down and put it in there.
Yep.
And it'll be super cool.
That works. I will totally do that.
And with that, we can do the rest of our show production offline. Because I think it's time to call it. We've had a fantastic time talking to Mr. Nathan. Thank you so much for being here. As discussed, we're gonna pop the links to your Discord, your YouTube channel, and all these great resources that we've talked about.
Which is great because by the
down in
time
the
this actually gets
description.
posted, the votes will probably start the next day, and they will be posted. The ballot and everything will be posted, and all the links will be in the Discord, on my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everything. Anywhere I can post it, I'll try to get that information out.
So be sure to check all of Mr. Nathan's links and all of the Merge Masters info. Check out all the really cool projects that are up for your perusal and voting, and be sure to put your votes in. Anyone else got anything to say?
I'm probably on Twitch as well at the same time.
That's right. That's true. Well, great. Nathan, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being on the podcast with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll, next time we have a competition, maybe we'll have you back on.
Sounds good.
Or just some other time, because talking to you is great.
Right.
And that's it. I'm going to bed. I have to do the whole show at some point tomorrow before I go back to work. So I'm asleep.
Oh, good luck.
So,
Have a good night, KT.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
All right. So
Good night, y'all.
yeah. Perfect.
And yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, I'll fade it out, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Just stop recording. It's fine. Everything's cool.